use regularly when I'm doing trauma training is seeing your telephone number, your mobile telephone number, if you have one, your home number, up on a billboard. So as soon as you see your telephone number on a billboard, you actually see it on a billboard. And then I ask the person, what color are your numbers? What's the background of the billboard? Then I have them read the last four numbers backwards. When you read the last four numbers backwards, now some people try and slip into their memory. You'll see them drop their head and they're trying to read their number backwards, but you actually want them to imagine, you want them to create an image of their telephone number on a billboard and then read the last four numbers backwards. That takes them in a different part of their brain and it breaks their emotional state instantly. Breaks it instantly. And again, Tara and I were talking on the weekend. I've probably done 50 live demonstrations of intervening with people who have serious trauma. And I've had to use that break state on average 2 or 3 times with every person. So I've done that break state 150 times live in front of audiences. It always works. It works every time. So I really encourage you to use it. Now, our middle son, Mika, got scratched by our big orange cat on the weekend. He had a cut on his forearm here. And I had to put some ozonol on, or polysporin on it and a Band-Aid. And he was getting all emotional. And I said, what's mommy's mobile number? And now the kids have a song they remember mommy's mobile number with. And he sang the song. And I said, now put mommy's mobile number up on a billboard and read it backwards. And he went to drop his head, for all you NLP people, into the kinesthetic part. And I said, no, put it on a billboard. He put it on a billboard. And while he was counting the numbers backwards,
that's what happened.
Polysporin and the Band-Aid went on. And he was perfectly calm. Yeah, guess what happened?
Distraction.
Yeah, kind of magician-like. So I want to share the second tool then today. So the second tool is peripheral vision. As soon as you break state, getting someone to go into peripheral vision is a really powerful calming tool. So you break state, you go, then I get them to go into peripheral vision. So you stare at a spot on the wall. As you stare at that spot on the wall, see everything else as it comes into focus all the way back to here.
I always use jazz hands. If you just get your hands up beside your head and you continue to stare up at that spot on the wall with your hands beside your head, if your peripheral comes into view just through your peripheral vision, immediately you're going to get a sense of calm. Immediately your brain, it forces your brain to sort of go back into balance. And it stays in balance in a way where any sort of anxiety that you may have been feeling is actually going to be diffused. It's going to put you back into a balanced state. So simply by going up into peripheral vision, we've had experiences with people who have used this in the middle of a panic attack. So somebody's actually experiencing a panic attack. By getting up into peripheral vision, it can actually stop what's happening chemically in the brain. And what it does is it gives you a window then. So once you have yourself in this grounded state where you're calming down, your brain is no longer sending all of the cortisol and the adrenaline and everything that happens to us when we're feeling anxiety. Once that stops, now you have a window where you can make a choice. So when you have yourself in a more grounded state, that's when you would bring in any other tools or any reframes or whatever it is that you're going to do in your mind to keep yourself more focused or more positive. That gives you the opportunity to do it. And there's nothing on the market, there's nothing else that will actually change your state as quickly and as efficiently as peripheral vision does.
And for those people who are clinicians or coaches that work with other people, the real hallmark that you notice when you do peripheral vision is their breathing will drop from their chest into their diaphragm. When they're in peripheral vision and they've relaxed, their breathing will drop from their chest to their diaphragm. When your breathing drops into your diaphragm, you feel this sense of calm. So that's tool number 2, break state and then peripheral vision.
All right. So we titled today The Art of Pretending. So one of the basic principles of NLP is that so much of what your reality ends up being is the images in our mind that project into the future what we anticipate happening. So before we explain this next little bit to you, I just want everyone to maybe you're being reminded, or you already know, or maybe you have never thought about this before. But your unconscious mind, the part of your brain that is effectively 90% of your brain, that's really driving a lot of your actions, your behavior, your response, your emotional state, is an unconscious part of you It's a part of you that doesn't know the difference between past, present, future, real or imagined. Your unconscious mind has no idea. It doesn't have the structures to be able to put time in this sequential order like our conscious mind does. And it also doesn't know the difference between real and what is unreal. It's why our little guys, before they start learning these differences in time and reality, it's why they really believe that imaginary things are true. And so as we go into this next bit, just the recognition to ourselves that everything that happens in our mind, we experience at an unconscious level as if it's real. It doesn't know the difference. Gives you a lot of control over how you can manage your emotional state, and in fact, how you can anticipate a future that is different than potentially the negative one you're just leaving yourself at the mercy of without doing these techniques.
Tell the story of 9/11.
Which one? The default?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tony Robbins did a TED Talk that many of you may have seen, and he talked about how we all tend to default into our unconscious emotional states. We have stress states that we'll go to. So while we have a tendency, we don't like to, it's just easier to assume that things are happening to us, right? So if somebody says something mean to me, you may hear me say something like, that person made me feel bad, or that person made me angry. We blame other people's outside things on our emotional state, when in fact what's happening is that you're the only one in there. Inside your mind and your body and everything else is just you. And so you're still making a choice in how to respond. Things happen out there. And even though it often feels like we don't have choice because it's happening unconsciously, we are choosing to unconsciously react a certain way. So Tony said, to illustrate this, when 9/11 happened, the angry people got angry, the sad people got sad, the scared people got scared. Everyone defaulted into whatever emotional state is their unconscious dominant state emotionally. And if you allow yourself to believe that this is just happening to you, that you don't have control over this, then we end up in a place where we have very little control about our actions. It's over here. Sorry, we've got somebody talking. We're just trying to mute. So my point in all of this is that you can get greater control when something like this happens, a pandemic like this, where we are dealing with uncertainty. I've told you guys in the last few, I'm one of these people that gets pretty obsessed with learning about what's going on out there. I don't shut my social media down. I amp it up. I'm on it more than I ever have been.
Oh,
and
yeah.
what I'm most interested in is people's responses to this, of course, right? And I see it happening right now. So in response to the pandemic, we have the scared people getting scared, the sad people getting sad, the lonely people getting lonelier, the people who are actually excited and thrilled about, change, and all the, the environmentalists are getting excited. Everyone is kind of defaulting into the emotional place that, if unchecked, could run rampant. So that the frustration out there with people, hoarding, that's one of those things where scared people are getting scared, and it's very, very real to them. And asking ourselves to be really tolerant of how other people are experiencing this. There is no one way to experience it.
No, and so this segues so perfectly. Again, I've mentioned Lisa Feldman Barrett previously. Lisa Feldman Barrett is one of the leading researchers on how emotions are made. So Tara talks about the angry people being angry, the fearful people being fearful, the sad people going into their default. We have those defaults because our brain predicts how we should feel in response to a stimulus. We're not in reaction, our brain's actually predicting it. So some of us predict sadness, some of us predict fear, some of us predict anger. And this is hard science. Now, if we know that our brain is predicting, that also presupposes that we can impact that prediction, that we can have some influence on the prediction. So, we always default back to NLP. That's what we do. There are other modalities that can help you change the prediction, but we talk about it in terms of NLP. So with NLP and timeline therapy, we go to the root cause of those emotional states, And like a string of pearls, you go back to the root event where you experience anger, and then all the other anger events in your life are connected in a string of pearls. We go back to that root cause, and we find the meaning in it that is different, unique, and we let go of the root emotion. And then that string of pearls seems to break and fall away. And then using timeline therapy, we alter how our brain should predict what we predict we will do when we encounter the stimulus. On a far smaller level than COVID-19, you can do this with family members. If you have a family member that triggers you at every family event, my second oldest brother maybe, my brain predicts I'm going to be triggered by him. I can change that prediction. I can change how he impacts me. I can install a new prediction, and you can test it right away. He says the things he says, and I'm no longer triggered.
So here's what we would challenge you or ask you to do. Well, certainly not ask you, just challenge you to do.
Just challenge you.
Is to take a look at your day. So if you just took, you could take the next hour and go into sort of the micro moments. I could break it down into how am I actually predicting that, once we get off this call and I have to go set my kids up and attempt to homeschool, I have predictions. And if I don't pay attention, I'm not going to be aware of them, right? So if I can slow it down and just say to myself, okay, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go downstairs. What is the first prediction that I could take a handle on and actually change, right? So we all know that there are big things in our life where we probably say the predictions out loud, right?
This is going to be bad.
Things like, this is going to be a shit show. This is going to be I'm going to be so lonely, or whatever it is. Those ones are out there. And I think that probably most of you recognize that you could, just alter that. Just see what happens if you start to imagine it differently. Your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between past, present, future, real, or imagined. It simply doesn't know. So if I imagine myself going through my day as if I'm like, high on something, like I have just tapped into some sort of, fictional way of keeping myself singing and dancing, doing a musical all day long. If I do that inside my mind doesn't know that it's not real. It just responds to it as if it's happening. It's its only choice is to imagine that it's happening. And so you would be so amazed at when you start to do that, if you break the cycle of dwelling on this sort of prediction that you're inadvertently trying to avoid, and instead just make up scenarios. Imagine if you put a tutu on and spent the day in your tutu, imagine that
it's a bad image. It's a bad image.
Whatever it is. And it's not as though you're going to do that. But what happens inside your brain is your brain goes, right, we have options here, man. We have different options.
Yes.
So I would ask you to go through, try it both ways. Try just doing an hour of time and break it down into like the 5 and 10 minutes of things. What are your predictions? And change them. And then maybe do it bigger. Maybe do your whole entire day. Get out over the next, 8 or 10 hours and look at the things and ask yourself, really spend some time. How am I predicting this to go? And if if you find this is really useful for you, I would encourage you to do it for the week, for the month, for the year, for your life. I mean, truly. And just give yourself that opportunity, and you will truly, we would love to get feedback from you guys. About how this stuff goes. We're of course going to be laying these out on YouTube, a channel, so you can go through them. And if we got some feedback on people, and the more Alan did an exercise with you, the more real you make them seem. So the tutu ones, you the color, the shape, how it fits you, what pirouettes you're going to do. You see it, you notice the details, the lighting, you hear it, you hear all the sounds. And I would love to see you guys do that.
Now, what Tara just did was what we call a content reframe, changing the content of the experience in your imagination. When we're in our imagination, as Tara mentioned before, our brain can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality. So when you by changing the content, by doing a content reframe, you're actually changing the meaning of the event. Now, on Friday, we closed with an exercise, and I think it'd be a great exercise to close today. I think it would work really well in this context. If we're going to help our brain predict differently. So COVID-19 is actually presenting an amazing opportunity as well as a huge challenge to
pretty, isn't it?
Individuals. And so, hey, Catherine. So if when we want to predict differently, one of the key skills of predicting differently is future pacing. And we future pace, we call it the positive future exercise or the anxiety model. When you float out into the future, 15 minutes past a successful completion about the thing you're anxious about or fearful about or angry about, and experience it as coming off as being completed successfully, and just allow those emotions to wash over you, your brain is now predicting that outcome is possible. And so, I mentioned my second oldest brother. If I go out and I predict that the outcome will be good, that we'll have a good time, that we'll share some laughs and some family seat, and I predict over and over again, I become far less triggerable, and I do enjoy the interaction with them. So I think that would be a good place to close today. We've been out almost, I don't know how long we've been on, 20 minutes. Would you like to close here? Good. So what we'd ask you to do, some of you are exercising, so don't close your eyes unless you're really, really good at what you're doing. But those of you who are in a place who can just relax and close your eyes, I'd encourage you to sit back and relax and close your eyes. And just relax all the muscles around your eyes. And then with every breath you take, let that relaxation sort of flow down through your body. So let that relaxation move down through your face and your neck with every breath you take, and down through your shoulders and chest, and all the way down through your thighs and calves and to the floor. And as you're sitting there now, just focused on your breath and being very, very relaxed, what I'd like you to ask you to do is just imagine floating up above a line, we call it a timeline of your life, and float out into the future to 15 minutes past something you're anxious about. Maybe you're anxious about how you're going to deal with today's stuff. So float out 15 minutes past the successful completion of your workday. If you have an interaction that you might think is coming up that's challenging, float out 15 minutes past the successful completion of that interaction, and just sit there for a moment. Just focus on your breathing and the fact that you've completed that thing that you thought you were anxious about previously, and now it's been successful. And notice how that feels. And now as you're sitting there and you feel relaxed and you feel calm, be aware that you've given your mind a different possibility. You're now giving your mind the opportunity to predict that that outcome will be successful, that you'll get what you want. That'll be a positive emotional event. And then when you're ready, and only when you're ready, float back to now. But take enough time floating back to now to notice how all of the events in your life come together to allow you to have that successful outcome. And as you come back to now, just come back down in the room and open your eyes. Now, all of you can do that exercise alone at home. It's a beautiful exercise to master. You can do it hourly, as Tara said. You can do it on a very specific event. You can do it on a day. You can do it on a training. You can do it on a presentation. You can do it on a sales call. Float out to 15 minutes past the successful completion of that event. And just notice how calm and grounding that feels. And you know that when you've done that, you've actually done something that's proven in hard science. You've given your mind a new prediction. And as you come back to now, you'll feel far better about that event, far more confident going through. And as we go through these tough times, I think it's really important to focus on this will end, it'll all be over, and we'll be out the other side. And hopefully it'll end long before summer, and we'll be out having ice cream cones.
I remind you to keep yourself focused on the things that you can control. We spoke the last couple of times about that as well, but it really is a matter of there is a lot of uncertainty out there. And the certainty that you have, the things that you can control, embrace them, celebrate them. They're all you. So I would ask if you guys have feedback. Al and I are going to be doing this as long as we don't know when. But if anyone there is interested in NLP or interested in what we do, And if there's a topic that you particularly are struggling with and you'd like to see us respond to it, we have a vague idea sort of the things that we're going to talk about. Tomorrow, Al's going to be on his own. He's going to talk about language. Wednesday, we're going to talk about how to stay motivated during this time. Many of you are working from home maybe for the first time, and we'll talk about motivation. On Thursday, we're actually going to talk about relationships. Some of the stuff that, you know, all of a sudden we're faced with some pretty intense together time, right?
Yeah.
And so with your spouse, with your children, with your whoever you may be with. And then, so if you guys have something specific that you feel like you'd like some NLP insight into, Al and I we've worked with probably, you know, over the last 5 years, we've worked with just about everything there is to work with out there. And we would love to share it with you. So just send us a message, however you send messages to us. Give us an idea of what you'd like us to speak to, and we can kind of do these impromptu and address whatever there is out there to be addressed. Okay, guys?
And I'd like to just share also that if you go to Tara and my webpage, if there's something you want to talk about personally, just go to Tara's webpage or my webpage, and there's a free consult button. Complimentary consult. Just click on that and book 30 minutes with Tara or I. If there's something that's really bugging you and you want to talk, just book a free consult.
Unless it's homeschooling.
Yeah, don't talk just about homeschooling. That would be bad.
And then by Friday, I'll know whether or not I can speak to that at all, or whether I'm asking for your help. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll have a session where everyone just gives me advice on homeschooling. Yeah, Kim, right? Yes.
100 activities to keep your kids active and happy.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow. Oh, time change.
What?
We're still going to go live tomorrow at 11? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I thought we were changing our time.
No,
we're not.
To 11.
No, we'll stick to 11. Okay. See you tomorrow. Thank you.